Hi everyone. Today what we're going to be talking about is finding the surface area of rectangular prisms. So our learning target is I can calculate the surface area of rectangular prisms. Off to the left is a picture kind of giving you a visual of what surface area is. So really it's the area of all of the sides of a three-dimensional shape. And today our focus is going to be on rectangular prisms. All right, so first we're going to start by just talking about what is surface area. So surface area is the sum of the areas of the faces or all the sides on a 3D solid. So sum means that we're going to add up all of the different areas of the faces, kind of like as if we were wrapping a present and we wanted to cover the box with wrapping paper, finding the area of all those different sides. So for the surface area of a prism, there are 6 different sides. You have the top and the bottom, the front and the back, and then the left and the right, the 2 sides. And so to find the surface area of a rectangular prism, you'll find the area of all 6 sides and then add them together. Now, one important observation that I want you to make is that the opposite sides in the rectangular prism are always congruent or equal to each other. So notice that the top and the bottom are equivalent, the front and the back are equal to each other, and then our 2 sides on the left and the right, because that will come up in our formula for finding the surface area. So to find the surface area of a rectangular prism, the shortcut is to use the formula, and that is 2 multiplied by the length and the width, plus 2 multiplied by the width and the height, plus 2 multiplied by the length and the height. And again, the reason that we multiply all of these by 2 is because the opposite sides are equal to each other. So this is the formula that we'll use to find the surface area, and that's what I'm going to walk you guys through in the next example. So surface area practice. What is the surface area of the rectangular prism? So we have a rectangular prism here, and the dimensions are labeled. And in order to find the surface area, I'm just going to remind us of the formula. So 2 multiplied by the length and the width, plus 2 multiplied by the width and the height, plus 2 multiplied by the length and the height. And really what this represents, we have like the top and the bottom, like I said, that are equivalent, both of the sides, and then the front and the back. So those of you who are visual learners might have an easier time seeing and visualizing this instead of using the formula. So what I like to start with is just labeling what is my length, what is my width, and what is my height. So I added labels into the picture. Do not stress yourself out about figuring out what's the length, what's the width. If you rotate the shape, any of them can be the length, the width, or the height. So you just need to assign each of the numbers in the prism one of the variables. My next step is I'm going to substitute or plug in those numbers in place of the variables. So instead of 2 times the length times the width, now I have 2 times 3 times 2, and that's the top and the bottom of my rectangular prism. Then I'm going to multiply 2 times 2 times 6, which are the sides of the rectangular prism. And then the last step would be 2 times 3 times 6, and this represents the front and the back of the rectangular prism. Now I multiplied each of those groups of numbers because we want to follow order of operations and do all of our multiplication first, and then our last step will be to add. So 2 times 3 times 2 is 12, 2 times 2 times 6 is 24, and 2 times 3 times 6 is 36. My final step is to add these 3 numbers together. So the surface area is 72 centimeters squared, or square centimeters. An important observation, again, that I want you guys to see is that surface area is always measured in square units. So normally when we work with 3-dimensional shapes, when we calculate volume, we use cubic units. But now that we're going back to surface area, this is a 2-dimensional measurement that we're taking. So surface area will always use square units. So let's take a look at one more problem. What is the surface area of the rectangular prism? So again, we've got 3 dimensions here, and we're going to use the same formula because it is still a rectangular prism. So here is my formula. I have the top and the bottom, the 2 sides, and the front and the back. So I'm going to go ahead and label the length, the width, and the height in my drawing here. And then I'm going to take those numbers and replace them with the variables in my formula. My next step is to multiply. So I'm going to multiply each of those groups of numbers so that I'm left with 60 plus 24 plus 80. My final step is to add all three of those numbers together, and I find that the surface area is 164 square inches. All right, so that was it for today's lesson. I left the formula here for you to reference. Make sure that you have this written down somewhere. And then you guys are going to do some practice finding the surface area of other rectangular prisms using the formula. Good luck.